An anthropologist proposed a game to children of an African tribe. He put a basket of fruit near a tree and told the children that the first one to reach the fruit would win them all. When he told them to run, they all took each other's hands and ran together, then sat together enjoying the fruit. When asked why they ran like that, they said, Ubuntu. How can one of us be happy if all the others are sad? Ubuntu is a philosophy of African tribes that can be summed up as I am because we are. Working with communities and schools to improve the lives of all children. Parents for Public Schools of Jackson.
Welcome to Lunch Bunch. I'm Tondra Murphy, Board Treasurer for Parents for Public Schools of Jackson. Lunch Bunch meets on the first Wednesday of every month at 11:45, except in January. We invite you to join us and bring your friends. For those of you who may not be familiar with Parents for Public Schools of Jackson, the organization was founded here in Jackson in 1989. Our work centers around supporting parents as partners with the school in the education of their children, ensuring that all children have access to quality teaching and learning, and engaging the public in active support of public schools. PPSJ has adopted a philosophy from Africa called Ubuntu. At its core, Ubuntu is best described as I am because we are. Today's special guest is Dr. Freddrick Murray, Interim Superintendent of Jackson Public Schools. Dr. Freddrick Murray has been appointed Interim Superintendent of Jackson Public Schools, a veteran educator of more than 20 years with an extensive leadership background. Dr. Murray most recently served as Chief Academic Officer of high schools. Dr. Murray served as a building principal at every level, elementary, middle, and high. With each appointment, he was able to increase performance at each school. Under his leadership, Murray High School achieved a placement among the top 500 schools nationwide on U.S. News and World Report's list of top high schools in America. The school was recognized nationally for academies 2 of the 5 years that Dr. Murray was principal. Dr. Murray has completed a Bachelor of Science degree in elementary education, a Master of Science degree in educational leadership, and a Doctor of Philosophy degree in educational leadership and supervision from the Jackson State University. He also has completed Harvard University Principals Institute and National Institute for Urban Leaders. Highlights of his accomplishments as Chief Academic Officer of high schools include developing the Academies of Jackson initiative in partnership with Alignment Jackson, which led to the formation of small learning communities within high schools to better serve students' specific needs. Leading the implementation of the one-to-one technology initiative, in which over 2,200 ninth grade students receive MacBook Air laptop computers, and cultivating major partnerships with the University of Mississippi Medical Center and Hope Credit Union to advance college and career-ready programs in JPS high schools. Dr. Murray is married to Linda Murray. They have 3 adult children, sons Jakari and Freddrick III, and daughter Dominique. He has 2 grandchildren, Ryan 6 and Jakari 4. I present to you Dr. Freddrick Murray.
First of all, let me just thank Parents for Public Schools, Ms. Jolivet, Ms. Gardner, staff members. It's refreshing to have a partner like Parents for Public Schools when we talk about the work that they do with the Ask for More Collaborative, the one-to-one initiative, the summer career work that they do with our young people. So the list goes on and on about, as it relates to the work that they do in our community to support Jackson Public Schools. So this is a true partnership. They're in it for the long haul, and those are the kinds of people and organizations that we have to have involved in our work. I've been in this community for over 20 years working in this school system. I've served as a teacher, as an assistant principal, as a principal at the elementary, middle, high school level. I'm involved in civic and community groups in this community. My church is in this community. And so I am Jackson. And so I say that so that it's clear that this work for me is personal. It's personal because this is my district. You know, I take it personally when someone makes a negative statement about the Jackson Public School District, because I know we're competent and capable of doing the work that needs to be done to lift our children. So I think that resume, not to boast, but to just show that I'm vested in this work. And so you'll have my all, my commitment, as long as I'm in this seat. And I think it's important to provide a backdrop for the work. I think it's important to see where we are, to provide the backdrop for the work that will take place. Last April, the State Department conducted a legislative audit in our district, and the legislative audit had a lot of findings that were not favorable. Of these findings, we had issues with facilities and transportation. Our status was downgraded from accredited to probation, which is an area that we have to deal with. On the heels of that, it was requested by the state board that an investigative audit be done. It's kind of a legislative audit on steroids. It's turned up. If you've ever been through an audit, you understand an investigative audit is every single standard is looked at. So every stone is unturned. They're looking at transportation, facilities, curriculum. Every possible area in our district at this point is being basically investigated. And then we're district rated F, and I use that, I'm very deliberate about saying a district rated F and not an F district, because I think that that's the space that we're in right now, but we will move out of that space. And so I provide that backdrop just to show you where we are. This is where we are. But I'm the eternal optimist. I think this is the place that we're here. We have to own it, and then we have to do what it takes to improve. If we do the things that are necessary to improve, then we become a better district forward. So I look at it from that standpoint. So we embrace this process that we're going through now, and we look at ways to kind of improve that and move forward. This is where we are, but where do we go from here? What do we do to improve? The targets that we have are very simple for this period, for this interim period. You know, we're not coming in with a lot of creative and out-of-the-box ideas. Our focus is to put us on firm footing so that this district can sustain success forever. And so we're very strategic about that. The first thing that we mentioned is the cap. As you know, our corrective action plan was not approved by the state a few weeks ago. Goal number one is to have our corrective action plan approved. We've been working collaboratively with MDE over the last 2 or 3 weeks to do just that. We've had technical assistance, we've had training, we've had meeting after meeting. The leadership team and schools have been working vigorously to make sure that we put an appropriate plan in place so that it can be accepted. And we are confident that that plan will be accepted. So that's step number one, to have the plan approved. And then investigative audit that's going on now. We have to stay ahead of that. We're communicating with schools. We're learning lessons from the legislative audit. So the positive from that is we know what to do. We know what the state is looking for. They've communicated to us about what needs to take place. And, you know, of course, we've always been good at plans, putting plans in place. But it's not about the plan. It's about what's happening in the schools. So if I put a plan in place and I say that we have an instructional management system and they come into a school and there's chaos, there's no lesson planning, there's no curriculum-focused plan, there's no team meetings, then we won't meet the bar. So it's making sure that these things are systemic throughout our district. So that's where we are from the investigative audit standpoint. And then the biggest piece, the biggest lift in all of this is my philosophy is, and it's very simple, it's not rocket science. If you don't have D&F schools, you don't have a D&F district. So, I mean, it's just that simple. We're looking at school by school, focusing on school by school to make sure that we make the necessary lift to move every single school out of F and those schools that are D out of D. That's our goal. We're going to treat people respectfully. We're going to do things the right way. We're going to protect principals and teachers' time. We're going to take away all of this frivolous paperwork that they have to do, but we're going to hold everybody accountable for the work because that's what we're paid to do, and that's what our children deserve. We have developed what we call instructional support teams. These instructional support teams are led by different members of our leadership team. Dr. Jason Sargent leads a team that focuses on Tier 1 instruction, good first teaching. They come out into the schools. We're focusing now on our D&F schools. They go out and provide an assessment. They just tell it like they see it. It's not personal. They look at what's happening. The components of a successful school is the bar by which they work. If you tell me that you're having team meetings and you're planning, then we need to see the facts that show that. Because if we don't see that, it's not happening. That's a best practice that must be taking place. If you tell me that we're having common planning, let me see some examples of the common planning, because if we don't see that, then it's not taking place. If you can't produce for me documents that show that you're going in and observing teachers, then it's not taking place. So again, those are things that we have to have taking place. So this group goes out to provide that kind of assessment. We have a group, another team led by Dr. Wallace, that focuses on Tier 2 and 3 instruction. That's support for those students who are most vulnerable from an academic standpoint. They look at all of those issues that are related to PBIS, if students are receiving the kinds of interventions that they should be receiving, and then there's an assessment done, and then they bring that information back. They inform the rapid response teams, and those teams are led by Dr. Murray, Dr. King, Dr. Stanton, Ms. Evans. And so they go out, they have a team of 6 to 10 individuals that go into schools and provide support. We already know what the issues are. So not to go in and say, you know, I need you to do this, but to get on the ground with them and provide the support. If teachers are having trouble with planning, then we have a session on planning. If teachers need a lesson model, then we model the lesson. If there are some issues with leadership, where a principal needs some support on how to deal with the situation, then we provide that kind of support. And so that is the very deliberate plan we have for working with our schools and lifting our schools from D to F. We need you, the community. You know, we need the community. We need partners like Parents for Public Schools to support us. And just to go back a little bit, safety. I know that's a big piece. We talk about school safety. I'm a school person. That's just me. That's what I am. That's my makeup. And in every organization that I've ever been in, I see some of my former assistant principals, Dr. Bradley, Coach Lewis, Mr. Appleberry, individuals that have worked with me, and we have school. That's the only thing I know. And when I say have school, you have orderly classrooms, engaging instruction, hallways that are clear, teachers where respect is reciprocal. We're not screaming at children up and down the hall. We have school, and that is a hallmark for success. In this position, that is my expectation for every building, is that we have school. If we're not, then we look directly at the leadership, and that's rightfully so. And that's me as a part of the leadership. We have to evaluate what we're doing, but we have to have school every day. When you do that, then you see the kinds of results by implementing best practices, progress monitoring, and being able to have an environment that's engaging and compelling and satisfying for students. About 2 years ago, I heard this speaker kind of tell this story, and I think it's very relevant. It was a story about a young lady. They lived in a rural area as a family, and the child went out into the backyard and fell down a well, an abandoned well. And so the parents, of course, they rushed out, and they brought out a rope, threw the rope down the well, but the rope was not long enough to get the child out of the well. And so they went to all of their neighbors. They went to Parents for Public Schools. They went to Jackson State. They went to Operation Shoestring, Alignment Jackson. They went to all these different people, and individually everybody came and threw their individual ropes down the well. Still did not work. So the plan was, the obvious was to tie the ropes together, and when they tied the ropes together and threw the rope down the well, they were able to get the child out of the well. So what I'm going to ask you all to do with us, community folk, is to help us. We need you to tie your ropes together with our rope and help us to lift ourselves out of this situation that we're currently in, because we can truly, you know, it's not just a mantra, we can truly build stronger schools together.
Dr. Murray, when you speak of safe schools, I feel the schools are too large. Is there any plan to maybe decrease the size of the schools so that they can be orderly?
Well, everything is on the table. Let me just say that. As a result of our audit, we are taking a look at everything. We're taking a look at all aspects of schools. But a few years ago, middle schools, when I was a middle school principal at Powell, I had 1,100 students. The largest, at the time, was the largest middle school in the city. Too many children for a middle school. we built three middle schools in an effort to decrease enrollment. So our middle schools, we've gotten that number down. Our high schools, we're in an urban district. We have large high schools, but we've done things like the academies to isolate the ninth graders. So we're doing strategic things to, even though we're in the same space, to minimize the movement in buildings. So again, we are addressing those things. You know, to build an elementary school is upwards of $14 million. So, you know, that's an issue, and then you look around at our tax base, and so it's a heavy lift. So we have to do creative things within our schools. But we can have safe schools with the size that we have. We just have to do what we're supposed to do in buildings. And everybody, when they come to work, they have to understand, they have to know what to do, when to do it, why we're doing it. That's just important. And they have to be held accountable for that work.
As far as some of the goals and objectives that you mentioned, what are some of the timelines?
The corrective action plan, our timeline for that is actually today. We've submitted our plan to MDE, and MDE will make a recommendation and submit their recommendation to the state board. And that information goes in, and the board meeting is next week. So again, we feel confident that on December 15th, that piece will be taken care of, which is a heavy lift, because without a plan, we can't even start to do the work. The investigative audit is ongoing. And so at this point, we're, as I mentioned earlier, we're trying to stay ahead of the audit. In our legislative audit, there were issues with buses. So what we're doing is we're looking at the entire fleet. If there are adjustments that have to be made, we're making those adjustments over the entire fleet. So when MDE comes out to look at the buses that they didn't look at, then we have that taken care of. Same thing happening in schools. If there are processes that we saw in the legislative audit, then we're talking across the district, and we're putting processes in place to make sure that when they come out at a school where they didn't come before, that those things are in place. So that's ongoing. The state kind of controls that investigative audit piece, and they'll be in our district probably over until in the spring. The teams that we talked about are in place now. Our CAOs and teams are in buildings as we speak. They're working through those processes and providing that support. We have an instructional management plan, something that we've not had in a while. But an instructional management plan is extremely important because it gives everyone the same focus. You know, I could have a school over here doing this because this is what the principal communicated to them. I could have a school here doing something that they've been advised to do, but as a district, we have an instructional management plan that outlines what everyone should be doing. And we've looked at the data. We know where we are. We know that in biology our scores are dismal. We know that in algebra we're not meeting the mark. So because we're here, when we make decisions about programs or people, personnel, then we can make informed decisions from good data. And we'll be making some changes. You will hear things that will be coming up as it relates to personnel, adjustments that will be made. All of these things are being done to improve what we do for children. That's what it's about.
What can community members do to help move the district from the death rate?
There's an alumni group right now of all the high schools. We didn't reach out to them. They said, this is our district. So we're calling on all the alumni from all over, from every high school, to come together to see what we can do for our district. All of the different alumni have come together. They're meeting at a centralized location to come up with a plan so they can approach the district and say, look, here we are. How can we assist you? Parents for Public Schools, prime example. We reached out to them to provide some support for students with MacBooks. This is a big part of the work that we're doing in high schools. They provided that support. We did just last week, we provided some training, technology training for teachers. 50% of our teachers are novice, 0 to 3 years. So they may not have the skill set to do what we're asking them to do. So we provided some training. We didn't have all of the funds, but we reached out to Parents for Public Schools. They supported that effort. So again, those kinds of community support initiatives, just individuals that, you know, just ask the principal, that's one thing. You know, talk to the principal, but be very strategic about letting them know that I want to do what helps move the needle. And be open to doing that. It's good. We want the cupcakes and the donuts and the pizza parties. That's important. But we need to deal with those factors that help us move schools. Reach out to the principal. If the principal is not available to speak with you, then email me. Dr. Murray, I want to help at Brown Elementary. What can we do? And then we'll deal with that to provide support. Ms. Faulkner is our Partners in Education Director. We have an agenda to say, this is what I need at the high school level. This is what I need at the middle school and the elementary level that will help us as we work to move the needle. And I would encourage you to see Ms. Faulkner as well for that kind of support.
In terms of the computer, providing the math books for the schools, the first amount of money actually came from the community. We did a social media campaign, and within 2 days we had exceeded our goal. And so the monies that were used in terms of helping with the training were monies that were left over, so we committed that to the district. So the community did a lot by responding to the needs of the high schools in particular who needed the math books.
And I want to recognize our principals. These are the people that do the work. You know, we set the vision and we do the plans, but these are the individuals that are out there in the buildings moving the needle. And we have to give them, and we have to give them what they need, and we have to get out of their way and allow them to do the work. But accountability is important. I think we have the right people in the space, the people that have proven records of moving schools, and we just feel comfortable about our place here. Again, we own where we are, but we think that we have the know-how in our district right now to move to the next level.
Thank you to Dr. Murray for joining us today. And a couple of things that Dr. Murray said that really resonated with me was, I am Jackson, this is my district, and I'm vested in the work. And as a parent of students in a high school in Jackson, that's what you want to hear from the interim superintendent, the teachers, administrators, or whatever. So I'm going to hold you to that as a parent. So thank you for that. And also the audience for being so engaged. All right, so our next lunch bunch is February 1st in 2017. Until then, please follow us on Facebook and Twitter and check out our website for updates on the good news coming out of our schools and the community. Remember, we're working together to improve the lives of all children. We would like to say happy holidays to you and your family from Parents of Public Schools Jackson. Thank you.